the last pick the Browns made, pick 13, in the 6th round, they took the center out of Ohio State, Luke. Is it Wypler or Wypler? I've heard it both ways.
Luke Wypler. I don't know why people are saying Wypler.
So I believe, was it Mel Kiper? Well, real quick, he's 6'3", 303. Actually an early declare, I guess, at center, which is something that's rare. You don't hear a lot of centers declaring for the draft early. So young guy, and I think it was Mel Kiper had him ranked at either his second or third best center in this draft. So why should Browns fans be ecstatic about this pick?
Go ahead, Derek. You want to take it?
Sure. Well, let me say this first. I was very confused when his name was called. I was happy, but I was like, okay, like what's the vision here?
Right.
He's just been consistent. You know, you talk about the numbers that these Ohio State offensive linemen have had. This is probably the most consistent player on that offensive line. He's not anything like crazy special, but at the same time, he's consistently playing at a high level. He's had really no problems. I can't imagine why he went as late as he did. I think it's just, you know, people get fascinated with the big school and people think that, you know, oh, they come from Ohio State, they come from Alabama, they're going to be stars. Well, the NFL doesn't exactly think that way, you know, all the time. We've seen, in the most puzzling thing about the draft is guys at the same position going ahead of guys who played much better at a higher school against better talent. It never makes sense to me, but it's a reality. And I think that's just a prime example here. Now, for the Browns, it's a confusing pick, like I said, but I like it. But for me, what's the vision here? Is Nick Harris gone? Because Wypler is somebody that I think is going to start eventually for the Browns. It might be in 2 years because they re-signed Ethan Posick to a 3-year deal.
Right.
So they might say, hey, let's get this kid ready because he is younger, like you said, Josh.
21. Yep.
21. So give it a 2-year, 1 to 2 season, Bill Callahan move here, get him coached up, and then slide him in there. And again, another guy on a rookie contract at a position where you're not going to want to spend a ton of money.
Yeah.
That makes sense. But at the same time, you just drafted one last year. You re-signed Ethan Posick, and you still have Nick Harris. None of those guys are going to get you any value in a trade. So unless they're fine with just cutting Nick Harris, all right,
yeah.
It's just confusing.
I agree with you 100%. So I like the pick, and the more you hear about the pick, I love the pick. But I'm 100% on what you said. I don't understand as far as with Nick Harris. I get Ethan Posick. Ethan Posick went out, balled out, and we got him on for what we got him for over 3 years. We got him for the cheap, which is great. I'm with you though. What happens with Nick Harris now? Because
I think that
last year he was our guy.
It could spell the end for Nick Harris, honestly, at some point, or at least he'll be on the team probably to roll out his contract here. But what's he got, a year left? 2? At the most?
A year.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think this is definitely a future preparation pick because there's no point in bringing Nick Harris back at all because he's just not on the field. He hasn't really shown enough. At least that would be my assessment from the Browns' point of view. I mean, Wypler per PFF, 87 pass block grade, 81.1 run block. He was a second-round grade on PFF. He allowed just 1 sack, 7 hurries, and 449 pass snaps. Now, one reason why maybe he fell, he has been knocked for having a slightly smaller frame for a center, shorter arms. They say he can't extend as much as, the centers that you would want necessarily in the NFL. So he's got
but where did we draft Nick Harris? Nick Harris was like the smallest center ever.
Yeah, he's very small too.
And he was a guard in college.
Yeah.
For a long time. He switched to center, which made even we thought,
confusing.
At least at the time, I remember thinking we didn't draft this kid to be a center. He's just going to end up being a depth piece guard for us.
Right.
He already knows how to play guard. And now you're getting ready to get into a second contract. You can't really do that. You're not going to sign him to big money to be a depth piece.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Dawgs Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Twitter at the Dawgs Podcast. Get your thoughts on the show at thedawgspodcast.com.